All right, good morning. Welcome to Tool Time Tuesday. Today we're going to do Microsoft lists. I just realized I started on the wrong slide, so let me go back. Um, I'll start over. It's Tool Time Tuesday. Um, and today we're going to do Microsoft lists. We realized we hadn't done it in a while, and we've used it a little bit more since we did it the last time, since we presented on it the last time. So we wanted to share some things that we learned. Hopefully, it's helpful to you. I wonder if any of you have used Microsoft Lists or are using it. You can get pretty complex with it, so we're not going to go all the way to all the complexities, but just to give you an idea of some things that you can do with it. And if you have any tips, please put them in the chat of, how you're using lists or things that you feel like, have worked well or not worked well. I'm Larissa. My co-host is Leslie. We're from the library. You know us. You can find us on Inside if you type in library, or you can Google us for the MD Anderson Library. We're here to answer questions for you. Wanted to remind you about TLDR from the Research Medical Library. We're sending out short educational videos by email twice a month. So if you want to stay up to date on some of the writing and publishing and research tips that we offer, you can sign up for TLDR. We have a couple classes coming up. We have a Dear Editor this week. Our scientific editors are presenting on how do I write a peer review, and they have a ton of experience. They're a lot of knowledge, so you can go and learn more about peer review and ask other questions. And also, if you haven't noticed yet, in the Software Center, there's a new version of EndNote 2025. So our colleague Erwin is going to present on some of the changes with EndNote 2025. In case you use that regularly or interested in it, you can learn more about that. So we're going to just dive back in. What is Microsoft Lists? It's used for issue tracking, for inventory, event planning. It can be used a lot for a lot of different things. They have some templates for things like onboarding checklists, for asset management. It has kind of like an Excel feeling to it, but it's in the Microsoft sort of SharePoint 365 environment. Lists can be personal, so you can create one for yourself, or you can share them with a team. And we'll talk about that. You can access lists like you access all the Microsoft tools. You can go to Inside and click on the little waffle icon in that upper left-hand corner of the screen and select lists. But you can also add lists to a team or a SharePoint site as well. So they could be integrated for your team to share. The lists allow you to track process, not just project elements. So we know there's other tools like Microsoft Planner that we've talked about. This one is a little bit more robust, and it allows you to do a little bit of extra customization on your view and what you're documenting. So you can select what data you want to collect, how you want to view the data, and of course, assign team members, items to team members. Okay. To create a list, it's pretty simple. When you go to lists on Inside, you can just select Create New, and they give you a couple of options. You can start with a blank list. It gives you a couple of basic options for layouts. You can change layouts later. So if you're just playing around, you can start just with the general list. You can import from Excel or an existing list. Every time, Leslie, you might want to say something about this. When we've tried importing from Excel, it doesn't necessarily import super well from Excel.
So the very first time you import, it does. But if you have a list that is
Um,
already existing and you want to import, I have always struggled with it.
okay. Um, so not the best at importing, or might take a lot of adjustment. You can also use the templates that are available. So there are some templates if you don't want to have to build out the list, you know, I mean, you're going to need to do some customization for you, but if you want to have something to start with, there are some templates available for you to select. So whenever you create your template, as with everything, you need to choose a descriptive name that you're going to remember and that makes sense to you. and think about where you want it to be. Is it going to be your list? Is it going to be shared on a Teams page, or is it going to be shared on a SharePoint page? If you're just playing around, it's fine to create one, but if you're creating it for a specific project and you're going to invest a lot of time, think about where you're going to save it first, to make sure that the access works the way you need it to. For access and permissions, um, this is going to seem similar to how you manage OneDrive and other things in Microsoft. But one thing to note is if you add a list to a team or SharePoint, the list is going to inherit the same permissions that exist on Teams and SharePoints. So the owners of the team and the SharePoint would still have full access. Um, so you can select read or edit only access. But again, if you share it immediately on a team or SharePoint, then it's going to just inherit the existing permissions. That might be easier for you if you want to share it with your group. If you create the list separately and you share it, you can also share it in that way individually. You can select that I just want to share it with these 3 people, 5 people, however. You're going to use the share button like you normally do. Enter the names of the people you want to share with. There is an option to manage access, and this is true for all the Microsoft tools. You can select the dot, dot, dot to manage access next to when you click on the share button, and you can view who already has access and what their permissions are. Again, whether they can edit or they can read only, and you can make changes to that access. Right. So it's always when you're creating the list or anything in Microsoft, you want to think about how you're sharing ahead of time. Um, it's sort of painful if you do put a lot of effort into the creating this list and then have to go back and figure out how you want to share it. It can be done, but it's easier to think about it from the beginning. So lists are based on a column format. Again, like I said before, it has a bit of an Excel field, not a feel. It's not as robust as Excel though. But when you create a list, it has a set of columns for you, and you can edit those columns to match what data you're trying to collect. So to edit, you can click on any existing column heading, and there's an option to go to column settings, rename, or format the column. You can also add additional columns. So there are some default columns that are added, like title. But if you want to add some additional columns, if you scroll to the far right side of the list, there's a plus sign with add columns. So you can definitely add columns or remove them later. When you add a column, you can choose the type of data you want to collect. So it gives you some basic options like text, or you could have a multiple choice drop down, date and time. And then uh, you just name your column and you save it. So one thing that you need to remember for deleting columns is if you create the column, you can delete it. You can go back to column settings and edit and delete when you need to. If it's a default column like title, you can't delete those because it's a default column. So there's just like 3 or 4 columns that you're given from the beginning that you can't delete. You can rename them if you want, but you can't delete them from your list. So work with your default columns first and then start adding additional columns. To add or edit list items, you can just select add new item. A form will pop up and allow you to fill in each field for the column. You can enter the information and just save. If you want to edit the items, you're going to click on the default field. The text is going to be underlined, and that's usually the title field. You'll click on the title field, and it's going to allow you to edit the fields, make changes, and then save. The other thing that's I wasn't read it like immediately apparent to me is you can edit in a grid view. Um, so you can click in and open the form and make changes, but you can also select to view it in a grid view, and that allows you to click into any field and make edits along the way. So it gives it a little, again, a little bit more of an Excel field. When you edit in grid view, you can just click into these, make changes, and then exit the grid view when you're done. You can also paste text into the grid view really easily. So if you had, something in another document or Excel spreadsheet that you wanted to paste over, if you're in the grid view, you can paste in pretty well. Am I missing anything, Leslie?
No,
Getting it so far? Okay.
you are getting it all.
This
And no
just wasn't,
questions.
yeah, the grid view was something that tripped me up a little bit because I was trying to click in and change like you do in Excel, but just remember you can switch to that grid view. You can also add attachments, which is kind of nice. So while you're editing, there's an option at the bottom of the form to add attachments to each item. Um, if you've given people edit privileges on your list, then they can open those attachments and edit them or edit the attachments. Anyone with view or editing privileges should have access to that. This doesn't work in the grid view. It only works if you exit the grid view. So again, if you can't seem to open the full form to add the attachment, just make sure you're not in the grid view. I forgot to do the comments part, Leslie. You can add comments on the Microsoft lists so you can keep the conversation going. In the form, there's an option for you to add additional comments um, to the entry, to the list entry. There's also a version history in Microsoft lists. So you can go to the list and select the ... next to the item, and you can choose version history. It may also be under more. So similar to other Microsoft tools, you can go back and recover an item on your list. A box is gonna open up when you select version history, and it's going to show you previous versions, timestamps, who made the change. In the version history box, you can restore the version that you want. So you can hover over, one from a day or two ago, and you can select that you want to view it, restore it, or delete it. The only thing to remember about the version history is you can't recover a whole list in version history. You can only recover things on an item level. Um, so if you think an item has been changed and it's not appropriate or correct, you can revert back, but you can't revert back to the entire list. You can do that on a Word doc, but you can't do that on a Microsoft list. Does anyone use the version history in Microsoft ever to recover something? I have
I
had
used
to.
it just the other day.
Did you?
Hmm.
It's a lifesaver sometimes.
Oh man, tell
Okay,
me about
good.
it.
Seems like some people have had to use the emergency version history. So in your Microsoft list too, you can do some filtering and sorting similar to what you might do in Excel. Again, not as robust, but there's some little icons at the top of your list. Um, you can do this at the column level, but there's also this option at the top. You can select filter, the filter icon, which is the little funnel icon, and you can choose what you want to filter to. There's also a sort icon, which is the little down arrow that you can sort your items there. If your list, like, I don't know if this happens to anyone else, but if your list is like missing something or a little shorter than expected, just check your filters. You can click on the filter icon and you can clear your filters, and that might be what happened. So you can clear the filters out as well. You can also create new views in Microsoft List, and this is something that takes a little work. But in your list, typically it's in that list view that you're familiar with seeing, again, kind of Excel-esque, the columns and the rows. But you can go up to the top and add a view. This brings up a create view screen. You can name that view and choose how you want the view to be. You can view it in a grid format, a gallery format, a calendar, board, and create just a separate view. Then the views will appear as separate tabs in your list. So you can make some additional changes from that view as well. So you can click on the drop down and set it as your default view if you prefer it. Um, I tried this before to create a calendar view. So from a list where someone's entering in, upcoming events or things that are going to happen, you can create a calendar view and switch to that view. Work in the list mostly and switch to the calendar view if you want to see the calendar view. Um, I wonder if I should show an example of that, Leslie. Did you have an example of a separate view?
Yes, I do.
Do you want to show that real quick before we
Sure.
hold on? I lost my share button. Seriously. I've only been using Zoom for 100 years and suddenly I can't find my share.
Well, I can stop it. It should
Stop
stop
it.
your
Okay.
sharing,
Thank you.
and I'll share mine.
Oh, I see it. It's my dyslexia today.
Okay. So this is my list. If I go into one of my lists, I have all of the items, and then I have a priority board. So this is what order is the priority. And then I have a progress board. So what kind of progress have I made? So I don't have to necessarily scroll through the entire list to see what's been started, what's been actually reviewed, so on and so forth. Um, but I also can have other boards if I wanted to. These are all letters. If I wanted to see like letters that were all fulfillment related letters, I could create a board specifically for fulfillment, one for resource sharing. That way I don't have to constantly filter them. I can just use the board or the view, and flip through the view instead.
Can you click on the add view just to kind of show
Yeah,
you
sure.
don't have to
So
add another view to your
add view, you decide what you're going to do. Do you want to make it public? So do you want it to be viewable by everyone else? So let's say fulfillment, and I create it. And now I have a fulfillment one. And this is where I would apply my filters. And I would say that this is uh, fulfillment. And I would save the view, and I would close the filters. And now I have all items, and I have fulfillment. And you can see what, like, the columns didn't change, just the content changed.
and it saves you a little time then.
Yeah, it means I don't have to constantly go over all items, filter it, unfilter it. I can just literally click on the board, the tab that is doing whatever I need it to do. So,
What do you find, is there like a benefit to this over like Excel?
yeah, in this particular case, well, the colors make a huge difference. I don't want to have to in Excel figure out the conditional formatting. So this is super helpful here. And also, if I want to put in like an attachment, let's say I like this letter, or I need to do something with this letter and I need to have an attachment in this letter, like I need a screenshot of what's happening or not happening, I can add the attachment. I can't do that in Excel. So this is the kind of like, this is why I like this particular format over Excel, is because this is like actual, for me, this is project based, and it's allowing me, like, this is a letter I'm going to have to maintain the rest of my career for as long as I'm here. And as long as we're on this system, I'm going to have to manage all of these letters. So it makes sense for me to make this something that's like a living management system. And that's what this is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Okay, so someone asked, do you pull from your email to add to the list? Is there time to demonstrate? Oh no, I think you actually just you create. Can you show how you add an item to your list?
yeah. So if I want to add an item, I just click on add new item. If it will load. There we
Yeah.
go. And then I just fill in the form and I click save. And if I want to edit an item, I click on in this case, the letter name, which used to be title, um, I can click on it and it will bring this up. And I can tab through and change all of the pieces. They do have this funny little add, edit all, and that pops open the whole form all at once to
So
make any changes.
just to just to be clear, like when she's talking about letters, she's talking about a system that she manages where she manages letters in the system. But the
Right.
type of data she's collecting is about the specific notifications within the system that she
Yeah.
sends out.
So this is the library system and it's the notifications associated with that system.
So yeah,
So
it is sort of like Excel. I would say
I'm
it's
going to
not as
stop
smart,
sharing.
but for file, there is a file option. Are you able to track priorities? Um, yes, you can set the priority. You can create a column and
Mm-hmm.
set priorities.
Yes, you
And
can.
I think I can show you. My example is not as robust as hers, but I will show you one.
And someone has their hand raised. If you want to come
Oh
off mute and ask a question.
yeah.
So are you actually manually entering all of your data or are you pulling it from somewhere else? Question one. And then two, is this more like a database?
So,
Ooh,
first question, in my particular case, my project, I did this all straight from Excel. I originally had this in Excel and I copied the columns from Excel into lists because when I
okay.
attempted to actually do the import, I was running into tons of problems with the import options. And then, yes, this is similar to a database in some ways. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
So I think so. Another option here in terms of inputting the data, if you create a list, depending on what kind of information you're collecting, which makes this harder to describe, right? Because we're all collecting different, maybe like tracking different things. But you can create a form for your list. So, like Leslie could have that list, and then she could have a form that she shares with somebody to fill out if they wanted to add something to the list. So, this could work for like events and an example of this. Let me see if I can show you an example. So this is just a really basic one, but if I have this list for class planning, like classes that I think that, we want to do coming up, um, I've built out some columns for these, like who I think the class organizer would be, the kind of target date, whether we've got it on the calendar or not. And then I've got some additional notes on here. But in addition to this, then, and if I don't want somebody to mess with the list directly, like kind of get in there and mess around with it, I can also create a form. So there's a forms section at the top. Of course, mine's not processing. There it is. I wasn't patient enough. You can create a form and you can create multiple forms for it. So I built this as an example. I created a class ideas form, and all it does is have the little values, the little columns that I have in my list. They show up on this form. I can uncheck some boxes. So if I want to say they don't need to tell me if they've calendared it yet or anything like that, I could uncheck some of my columns. I can share this form with the staff and they could fill it in. When they fill it in, it'll show up on my list and then I can review it if I want to, decide, okay, I'm going to assign this one to Leslie to teach or add some additional content to that. So that's one way you could add information to your list instead of, I mean, you could just link to the list, which is another thing I have. I have the list linked on a SharePoint site where the staff can get in and add their own items. But if I feel like it might be more user friendly, I could send them the form and just have them fill out the forms for us. So when you add information into it, I'm going to edit in the grid view. It just gives me the little fields to fill in, and I can add a new item and say, okay, we're going to teach Microsoft lists. I'm going to be the organizer, and this is a multiple choice. So I've I've created a list of staff members who teach, so that when they type in their name, let's say if I want it to be Sarah, then it will pop up there for me. Um, and then I can put in a class title, etc. So I hope that kind of helps a little bit. That's one way you can add data into it. You can do it manually. You could copy and paste it from somewhere, or you could use a form and share that link through email or through Teams.
Larissa, I have a
Yes.
question.
Hmm.
So I use a form. I inherited it. Um, and I need to change a column on the list. Right now, it only allows single choice, which is a radio button, but I need
Uh-huh.
to switch it. And so I tried to switch it in the list. And on the Excel that it exports to, it shows the word list instead of the actual list. Is there
Oh,
a way to fix that? Do you know?
I think we'd have to see it to know. I think we'd have to look at it to know.
Okay.
So you're working from a Microsoft list and it's exporting to an Excel?
Ex yes, but the team uses a form to send me the information.
Okay.
I
So
think you have to change it in the form and in the list.
we'd have to see it to,
Yeah, we'd have to see it and we'd have to actually do a little research to figure out.
but if you want, maybe we can look at it together.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay. Um, I think all of these things take it takes time to build. It's not something you would like I would say for Leslie, her building that list for herself, I mean, that took her quite some time to build to make it work best for her. Um, but I think if you got it flowing the way you wanted it to, it could be really helpful. So some best practices for this is think about who should have access to your list before you're creating. Where is it going to live? Um, Clearly, it's helpful if you think about what data you're collecting and how you want to display it or share it afterwards as well. Think about designing your columns thoughtfully. They should make sense for everyone who's going to have access, and try to avoid clutter if you can. We've all seen spreadsheets, lists, materials that are just overwhelming with clutter. So review your fields occasionally and just adjust as needed. Um, so if you want to learn more about lists, because I know this was just a quick overview, there are some LinkedIn Learning videos. I will share the LinkedIn Learning and some other videos too, so you could dig into the sections as needed. Um, but this was just a quick overview of lists. Any questions? Any other questions? Okay.
So I will say the person who asked about email, you can connect a lot of the different Microsoft tools and like words, sorry. You can connect multiple Microsoft tools. So you could connect, for example, Outlook and lists. You have to use Power Automate. I don't have enough experience with Power Automate to be helpful. But I know we used to have a Power Automate users team, and we used to have people who could help you write out the correct flow for the Power Automate.
Yeah, so to give you some ideas on this, and again, we're not experts on this, but they have this workflows section and this integrate section. So I know some people need approvals on items. There are ways to set up for approvals or to create other flows, like for notifications. Um, it just I think we could forward you to the Power Automate people to set up what makes most sense for you on that. But it is there. To me, it's a little bit tricky. Um, but I mean, it's definitely doable.
Yeah, there are templates, and apparently Copilot can help you with Power Automate, so that's good to know.
And,
Okay, you can ask Copilot.
and this one you can actually, can you set a due date on this here, like a deadline due date?
Yes, you can set deadlines on these. I'm pretty sure.
And are you able to, you can actually be able to print that, all right? Okay, are you able to share this information to someone else?
Yeah, so you can export it, but you could
Mm.
also, if you gave them access to the list, they could view the whole list. But you could also just export it and share it that way if you don't want them to, I mean, you could share the list as read only as well.
Uh-huh.
So when you share it with them, you could say read only so they can't mess up your flow.
Oh, okay, I got you. Okay.
You know what I mean? Like sometimes
Yes.
people
Mhm.
mess with your columns and I don't know. So yes, you can share. Okay, so
Okay.
someone else said they use Power Automate and it's somewhat straightforward. They have some templates already made. Um, so if anyone ever wants to present on Power Automate, love to have you present
Yeah, if you
because,
are a Power Automate user, we would love for you to present.
right, I don't feel expert.
I understand the